And so, lying on my bed one night, right here in Beverly Hills many years ago, it must have been 14 or 15 years ago, I suddenly became aware that I am seeing what I shouldn't see. I am looking into the most marvelous interior of a plush hotel. It seemed that way to me. And so consciousness followed vision, and I found myself in the room. But I knew I was on the bed, so I came back to the bed. I'm still seeing the interior of this room, and I went back into that room. I came back again. I must have done it 12 or 20 times. It was fun, going into the room, and the room was just like this, real. Then I came back to the bed. Now, I said, I am now going to explore. Regardless of consequences, I am going to explore. And so, I went into the room. It seemed like a room 30 by 20 from the bed. When I entered it, with the decision to explore, the room closed upon me and became a third of itself. Say it became 10 by 7. And I found it was a dressing room for a huge big suite, beautifully done, but it wasn't yet occupied. It was there to be occupied, but the room at the moment, that is the suite, was not occupied. And I thought, well, now I'll go through the door. I didn't go through like some gossamer. I opened the door with my hand and I walked right through that door. I was solidly real to myself. Then I walked down the corridor. And the corridor that I walked down was intersected by the main corridor. And all the lights were on. And two ladies were coming down that corridor, the main one. But I knew this thing began as a dream. So I knew, well, all ends run true to origins. Therefore, if the origin is the dream, this is the dream. So I say to the ladies, ladies, this is the dream. This whole vast world is a dream. And then they were afraid of me. Who wouldn't be afraid of a man that suddenly appears on a place in your, I would say, walking, and tells you this whole vast world is a dream? You would think he's nuts, he's insane. And so they thought I was insane, and they got just as far as they could from me, and walked right next to the wall, duck style, one behind the other, and looking at me very suspiciously. Then I saw this object hanging from space, and it reminded me of a similar object I had seen in a friend's home in North Hollywood. So I say to them, look, see this? And I held it, and to my surprise, it isn't gossamer. This is not an after image. This is not a memory image. This is real. The thing is solid. Well, I held it, and by this time they were way down. They took one great look as they looked back at me, and then darted into the main room. And here I am standing alone, holding on to this thing. I said to myself, Neville, you know this is a dream. The origin is a dream. The end is a dream. Come on, wake up. I closed my eyes to the obvious, and I held this thing here, and I couldn't. I opened my eyes again. I'm still standing there. But how am I going to get back to my room in Beverly Hills? I didn't know what. There was no place I could go to take me back there. But I remembered, feeling is the secret. I'm holding this here now, and it's real. It's solid. I'm solid. They saw me. They heard my voice. And I walked on, and every step was solidly real as walking on here now. So I imagined that my head was on a pillow. When I could feel a pillow under my head while I'm standing, I suddenly felt myself in a horizontal position. And my head is on a pillow. And then, all of a sudden, I could feel that pillow. But I was cataleptic. I couldn't open my eyes. I couldn't move a hand. Couldn't move a finger. And here I am, a living being in a dead body. So I said to myself, well, they'll find the body tomorrow morning, and they've got to cut it up because I'm insured for a little bit. And to prove that nobody took my life, they have to cut it up to find out why he died. Always have to ask that question. And they'll give it a name. If they can't find it, they're going to give it a name anyway. So here I am, couldn't open my eyes, couldn't move my hand. In about 15, 20 seconds, which seemed much longer than that, my little finger, I could move it. And then I could move my hand a bit. Still couldn't open my eyes. And we were sleeping in a double bed. So I pushed my hand out, my left hand, and I could feel the warmth of my wife's body. Pardon me. At that I knew I was back on my bed. In another 15 or 20 seconds, I could, with great effort, open the lids of my eyes, and here came all the familiar objects on the walls, on the bureau, and everything returned to consciousness. Now, I stepped into a world just as real as this. I am telling you, there are worlds within worlds within worlds, and they're all here right now. Just like turning on a radio, and you turn it ever so slightly, and you have a new wavelength and a new station coming in, bringing something entirely different, and they're not interfering with each other. And these worlds are all here now, and there are people, just as we are peopling this world, and they're just as real as this world. It's terrestrial. And it doesn't, you don't walk for it. I was on the bed. I seemed to walk into it. I would say, 10 feet away? But the same area permeated the bed, and the bed did not obstruct it. And that world into which I stepped did not obstruct the house that I lived in Beverly Hills. It's all here, the whole vast world. Worlds within worlds within worlds.